What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 37 of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson, featuring Clarence Taylor III, Trey. So as you can probably tell by that intro, I am dead inside. I am working the Olympics right now. It's 12-hour shifts. I've worked 12-hour shifts every day since August 21st. It's amazing. It's lovely and it's amazing, but I am tired and exhausted and my brain is not functioning correctly. So I'm only going to stay on and talk Olympics because that's the only thing that I even know that's going on. And then I'm going to let the guys take it over from there for the rest of the stuff around the sports world. But make sure to give us a follow on Twitter, on X, and give Trey a follow on Instagram. So we're going to get right into it. Just starting right off about the Olympic opening ceremony controversy. And I'll preface this. My filter is probably not on right now. I'm tired and I have dealt with the bullshit coming out of the Olympics for the last 3 weeks. We're going to start off by saying that, and Kylan just tweeted about it, and it's a good thing to do. Journalistic integrity and being a smart consumer of the news and sports and world means doing a smidge of research before posting your thoughts on social media. Now, you don't have to. It's not a law. Trust me, it's not a law. But to generally be a good human being, you should do a small bit of research before posting something controversial online. Now, again, you don't have to. It's not a law. It's free speech, whatever you want. But there's been a lot of controversies, a lot of things going on with the Olympics. It seems to be different groups of people that are angry about different things. And then when they find out that thing isn't true, they move on to something else that they're mad about. The Olympics used to be, I swear, until this Olympics, it was like a time of peace, a time of coming together, a time to celebrate your country and celebrate the athletes. And somehow it has evolved into this weird political statement thing where everything has to be a political statement. And the main thing we were talking about is there is the France did first of all, I thought the opening ceremonies were phenomenal and beautiful. I didn't necessarily love every part of it, but I thought it was super French. And I thought that it really represented Paris and France well. I think a lot of the athletes were saying as they were flowing down the Seine, they felt like the city of Paris was coming alive around them. And that's kind of how I felt watching it. I thought that the city of Paris, NBC, the commentators did a really great job of bringing it together. I did. Some of the parts, some of the performances I thought were a little too long, but I that's not my call, and I loved it, and I thought this was really French. Now, go. No,
go ahead. I'm of the mindset, just to give Morgan a break. I'm of the mindset, and this was mainly about the opening ceremonies. And this is the whole thing, right? So we had this thing, right, in the midst of the United States and Greece and all the other countries coming down. The big thing was whatever that footbridge was, right? A lot of y'all may have seen this picture. All you saw was a bunch of women and drag queens together at a table, right? And you probably all, whether you were normal or not, I didn't personally take offense to it. I know I talked to Trey last night about it. He didn't take offense to it. That's the two Christians on here. Morgan just said she really, I don't know. You didn't take offense? I mean, you were working it, so.
I honestly, so I'll tell you what. I didn't see it happen because I ended up not being able to watch that part of the ceremony. Right. And the stuff that I heard, I was like, there is no way that is what happened. There's no way that people kept saying, did you see this? Did you see that? And I was like, there's just no way that happened. And there was no way that happened. Right. So continue.
Right. So if you saw it live, right, you probably saw a bunch of drag queens, and they skipped it. Then they skipped it and went to, I think it was Greece, Egypt, one of the countries that was coming down to the river. And then by the time we got back to it, they were doing a catwalk representing the whole fashion thing. But before that, what people didn't see, because, NBC, time is money, and NBC don't have time to do a full performance of everything when the countries are coming down the river. Literally, countries coming down the river. I feel like that's a nursery rhyme somewhere that somebody can make up. Countries coming down the river. Anyway, so what you probably saw was that, and you probably saw Fox, Outkick, all the usual conservative suspects saying they made fun of the last supper, blah 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 blah. We don't need to rehash the last 4 days for some of y'all, because I know some of y'all are tired of it like me. But what you didn't see on the broadcast, because NBC didn't show it, was that, the plate opened and there was a big, as I said, I think yesterday or the day before that, Papa Smurf looking man in the middle of the plate, which none of us saw because we immediately went to NBC immediately went to whatever boat it was. Kelly Clarkson was fawning over the black girl who did a very, very amazing job, the opera singer with a French flag. And I am not, Morgan's more the arts person that's the former dancer than I am. But I'm just gonna say, like, them people performing at the top of all the illustrious buildings was a little bit too much for me. And I'm not
I thought it was gorgeous.
But I know I would not be one of the people if somebody was like, here's a mic in your hand, here's the French flag, sing it, don't look down. That's essentially what she had to do. I wouldn't have done it. She's way more professional than me. And then you had the metal band. We didn't even get to Marie Antoinette, which some of y'all took too far too. It's a metal band and French read a history book. Anyway, so this main thing about this is that. So it did not make fun of the Last Supper. Trey and I, he can talk more about this. Y'all made such a big deal out of this. The organizer and the director and the producer had to come out and say, yeah, this was just us DJing. It's supposed to represent France. It was not.
It was representing the Feast of Dionysus, which is a Greek festival that always happens around the Olympics and these kind of things. And all the Olympics always try to do an ode to Greek mythology and things like that, since that's where the Olympics were started.
Right.
And I think you said something really important. I think you may have posted it on Twitter or something, but like you said, like it wasn't representing the Last Supper, but like even if it was, like, does it really matter? Like doesn't like.
I know personally I wasn't offended because I don't take like Leonardo da Vinci's and look, artists, people who listen to this that like art, I'm not coming at your favorite art piece because I know some of y'all inspiration is that Last Supper piece. I'm just gonna say I was not offended by a fictional art piece. Like, I'm not saying Jesus is fictional because I'm a Christian. That would go against my whole thing. I'm just saying I'm not mad about the fictional art piece of the Last Supper because I don't really reference that thing. I want to see it, but like, I'm not like, I look at that the same way most people look at Michelangelo's David. Like, is that the real David? Is that what David looked like? We don't know, but is that really what Jesus and his disciples look like? Probably not. I don't know why Christians were so upset about this, but they were probably more because of the drag queens than anything else. But like, I'll end it like this. Like, if you find yourself agreeing with Outkick, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Tomi Lahren, Riley Gaines, if you find yourself on that side, reevaluate your life. Like, do some more research and reevaluate your life. Trey, you go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, y'all pretty much said it all. I think it comes down to, Kylan and I were talking about this last night, and, we both know what the painting of the Last Supper looks like, and we both know about the Feast of Dionysius. And I looked at it and I was like, I can see how you could say it looks a little bit like the Last Supper, but if you, like you said, Morgan, have some media literacy and go do some research before you say anything, you would have found that it was imitating the Feast of Dionysius. And there's even, just a quick Google search, you find images of Dionysius, and there's like fruit all around him, and he's holding wine because Dionysius is the god of wine and fertility. So if you just did that quick Google search about Dionysius, you would have known that. But that's not the case, right? We're in a world where, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have, the levels of media literacy that we have. And so people, say crazy things about things that they don't actually know about. Or they say things from a place of ignorance. So at the end of the day, I mean, we can be mad about it all day, but on the other hand, I think in my opinion, the thing is, hey, you guys are wrong, and then ignore them because they're wrong. So
you have to move on. You have to move on. You can't continue to be mad about it because you're pretty much just speaking into a black hole at that point. And
correct.
They are. It's a hard lesson to learn, but I think especially when it comes to politics and stuff like that, there are just some people's minds that you aren't going to change, even if because you explain it to them in person, they're like, but still they did this. And you're like, okay, that might be true, but that's the way that things are, unfortunately, right now, and it sucks. But
and I just want to sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
And I just want to say that, like, if y'all are mad just based on what the French did, the next Olympics is in LA. So y'all gonna be really mad with what LA does because we know it's gonna probably be some rap in there. It's gonna be a lot of stuff that's gonna make people upset when it comes to LA. So like, y'all might as well. If this was too much for you, you might not want to watch it in four more years.
Yeah, and the last thing that I want to say about this before we move on is that I think that a lot of people, regardless of this, were like, it was weird. I didn't like it. I didn't blah, 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 blah. And my thing to that is that a lot of these events that are, you could say Super Bowl, you could say All-Star games, you could say whatever. They're the same every year. It's stupid. They do the same kind of performances. They do this, they do that. Well, Paris tried something different. They did something different. And maybe it wasn't your cup of tea, but I don't think it's fair to be mad at somebody for trying something different. It's a lose-lose situation. If you just have the athletes walk around the stadium like you always do, it's boring. Why is it always like this? They tried something different and new. I thought it was a beautiful success. Some people didn't, regardless of what it is, and that's okay. But I don't think that I don't think you should knock them because they tried something different. I thought it was beautiful. Again, not everybody's going to think that, and that's totally okay. But I think you have to give them at least props for trying something really, really different. And you have to give props to, and I know I might be biased, I worked for NBC. I did not work on the opening ceremonies at all. But I think you have to give props to the technical crew because that was a huge lift. It was something so different, something that we've never done before. And I think that they pulled it off pretty well and in a torrential downpour rainstorm. So I think everybody involved give a nice little A+ for that.
Yeah, so let's shout out the production crew. So 28.6 million people, despite that controversy, 28.6 million people tuned into the opening ceremony. So what's your reaction to that? Trey, you can start. Trey, can you hear me?
Sorry, I clicked out of StreamYard for a second. No, I think it's awesome. I mean, almost 30 million people viewed the opening ceremony. Unfortunately, I was not one of those people. Actually, I found out after the fact. For those who don't know, I live alone and I have streaming services, but do not have cable, which is why I wasn't able to watch the opening ceremony. But I mean, I think, and I don't quote me on this, but my understanding is that this is some of the highest viewership since 2012 in London. So despite the fact that there were a lot of people who were frustrated with the opening ceremony and didn't necessarily like it, millions of people still viewed it. So from a viewership standpoint, that's what you want. You want eyes on the opening ceremony because it's supposed to be this kind of like grand display of the countries that are involved in the Olympics, but also the city where the Olympics is being held. So that's really all I can say about that.
Yeah. You're muted.
Thank you. I think for me, I really enjoy. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. We give you one a show, right? I really thought it was well done. Like I said, I have some gripes with having Kelly Clarkson and Peyton Manning in that spot, but I thought it was relatively well done. I thought Mike Tirico made them look as good as he could. Mike
Tirico is a star.
Yeah. Star. Yes, my fellow Syracuse alum. My one critique would be that I think NBC should probably lean more into the journalism side of the opening ceremonies, but I understand that a lot of that is cross promotion and there's a lot of politics in there. We talked about politics last week as far as the USA women's basketball team, but there's politics and some of this stuff too, as Morgan and I know. But I mean, other than that, other than a minor criticism of who they put in the chairs next to Mike Tirico, I thought it was relatively well done. I love the medal performance. I know some people didn't. I enjoyed the fact that they leaned into that, got the beheaded Marie Antoinette, did some mixing of Les Mis before that, put in the medal stuff, and I was like, oh snap! I didn't. It's like one of them things when you see the opening ceremony. It's kind of like the Grammys, right? Like, I bet none of y'all thought I would compare the opening ceremonies to the Grammys. But it's kind of like the Grammys, right? You get that mixing of music, right? Like, who would ever think that, like, you could do, like, a Les Mis opening, didn't get a metal band now? I did take a couple of years of French, so I sort of understood, like, every other word, but I didn't understand every word that they were saying. But, like, all you needed to know about that was beheaded Marie Antoinette singing. You had a freaking opera singer on the ship and a bunch of pyrotechnics around, like, the what was it, the Castle Palisades. Don't quote me on it. But anyway, the last place where Marie Antoinette was before she got beheaded. So I thought it was well done. I think that was the highlight for me. And even though it was rain soaked, I did love the Captain America and Wonder Woman photo of Coco Gauff and Captain.
That was a great picture. Great picture
and
from the
LeBron
water.
just sitting there in the rain holding the flag. I love that picture. I think that should be. I'm telling my kids that's how the country was founded right there. That's gonna be that was the founding father, the founding mother. I loved it. Loved it. Think they need to do more of it. I don't know what LA is gonna do to top that. I don't even know if there is a river in LA because I've never been there.
No, they're doing it at the Rose Bowl.
Okay, so well, there you go. A parade of athletes, literally. So maybe it'll look just as good. I doubt it, but all we
know is that Snoop will be very influential in everything that they do. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, I don't know when as a country we decided that Snoop Dogg was our national mascot, but I'm here for it. And I was like, I love it. He's like, he's everywhere.
Like I said, if you're conservative and you were mad about the art piece, just wait until you see the gangster rap opening ceremony. That's in 4 years.
We'll have Kendrick out there doing the Not Like Us rap that has become the basketball's the Team USA's theme song.
Yeah, you thought the Super Bowl was too much a couple of years ago. Just wait until the opening ceremonies in 2028. But yeah, Morgan, you got anything to add to that?
No, I think it's awesome. Again, just shout out to the promotion that they did. I know that the Olympics seems to sneak up on everybody every 2 years, whether it's the summer or the winter. But I think that it probably also helps slightly that they were able to do it live at like 1:30 p.m. and then re-air it in prime time at 8. I think that always helps because the people who watch it early tell the people to watch it late, regardless if it's good stuff or bad stuff. They're like, you got to see it. So I think as journalists and as artists, your goal is to make an impact on someone, and the opening ceremonies definitely did, for better or for worse. They made impact. So they got people talking about it, which is more than in years past, I guess.
In our world, it's all good press. You're talking about it, so it's good, right? Like,
exactly.
So yeah, like this will be so we can move on, but not to put y'all under the hood too much. But y'all know that all these Olympic stuff, except for in the morning, is pre-recorded. Next year, I mean, Morgan knows more than I do. Should be the first live Olympics in a while, correct?
So these are pretty live. These are, if you are watching them during the day. So I'm working all day on live sports. They do re-air them all, but like the gymnastics today, I think most people watched live, which was great.
Yep, I did.
Most of the basketball games, I mean, we've watched them all live. The soccer games have pretty much all been live. A few events they do have like early in the morning. I know surfing is pretty early. Some of the archery and the stuff like that, the marathons, all that start really early. But it's nice. I think it's something that I think for a lot of people you can kind of have on in the background, which is just a nice thing to do. And then they turn it around for prime time, which is great.
Yeah.
So you can choose plug for what I think was the greatest thing that NBC did this year was making Gold Zone. I don't know if either of you guys have seen Gold Zone. So it's on Peacock, and it's the two hosts of NFL Red Zone. So it's and Jack Collinsworth, and they just are all on all day. It's just like Red Zone, where they have 4 box, quad box, 1 box. They're talking about all the different stuff. But we're gonna go here, we're gonna go there, and not missing any action. And it's perfect for people who like really care about big events or the U.S., like the big stuff that are happening. Obviously, if you want to tune into the gymnastics all day, that's great. But like if you want to just see Simone's events or just see Suni's events, watch Red Zone or Gold Zone, and it'll flip over to there when it comes there. It's great. I haven't really watched much of it because we have like 16,000 TVs where I am. So I've been able to kind of watch a lot of it live on different TVs, but it's a really great thing and people are raving about it. So it's been a great way to watch a lot of this stuff.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, so Team USA basketball beat down South Sudan. Those of you that saw it, it kind of hurt my heart a little bit that Joel Embiid got benched, but we'll get to that, or not benched, but rested. But we'll get to that in a couple segs. But I it was better than sweating it out. I mean, I think. I mean, I don't know this because we didn't talk about this before. I think I might be the only person that watched that South Sudan game on this panel right now a couple of weeks ago live. So I really went through the motions watching that game. But I thought this was a very dominant showing. I also think that it does help my Joel Embiid agenda that Steph Curry didn't get off. He only scored like 6 points, and that's because as great as Anthony Davis is, he does not 3 points. I'm sorry, he does not do screens like LeBron James will tell you. Like you might have to get him like really drunk, but he'll tell you that if you ever watch a Lakers game, the one thing AD doesn't do is screen. So Steph Curry, Devin Booker kind of suffered. They didn't start really picking it up for real until Bam got in there. But AD did well, but everybody in the starting lineup was in the negative. And for those of you plus minus people, you know that negative, everybody being a -9 when Joel Embiid's in there, everybody's a positive. Like I said, Anthony Davis is a great player. I thought it went really well. They got what they needed, which was a bunch of people who could switch. You did see him, LeBron, Steph Curry the most, but all of them get burned by the speedy South Sudanese. So I think that'll probably be the next to last time you see a lineup with AD in it, because if you were a basketball head and you watched that and you saw everybody get burned, like by the people that were out here, Pascal Siakam it, it was just a whole thing. But South Sudan is a great team. Obviously having Kevin Durant back really helped. I thought it was a great showing, and everybody got what they wanted. They got to see what it looks like for Anthony Davis to be the center. And, you can take or leave it, but, I thought it was a good showing, and they won by 15 points. So great for Team USA. And very good showing, shutting down Carly Jones, who really killed them a couple of weeks ago. Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I last week my he's not him was Gilbert Arenas, his comments about South Sudan. So honestly, I really thought South Sudan would kind of come out with a kind of a chip on their shoulder. And a couple other guys like Shayok didn't play too well. Who's the other guy? Omot, he played very well, but I just expected them to come out with a little bit of chip on their shoulder, and they didn't. Kevin Durant came back. I think his plus minus was for the analytics people. His plus minus was 26. You had Bam. His plus minus was 22. Derek White 18. Anthony Edwards 18. So you win by 20 points. That happens, but you are correct. And if you're looking at plus minus, though, that the starting lineup did not. Plus minus was all negative. I think if you combine it, it's something like -20 across the starting lineup or something like that. Not including Devin Booker. So it was good to see them come out and kind of dominate first game. I think they were kind of riding the high, and I'm sure like LeBron and some of the other guys were kind of just like riding a high from probably the opening ceremony, but just in general, they're like, hey, let's kind of go out here and show out. We've had some people respond pretty highly to the way this team has played. One of them being, I wonder who was it? I can't remember who it was, but that mentioned that this team might have been able to beat the dream team. I'll just say, I'm not going to say whether or not they would have been able to beat the dream team or not, but I think we can both agree that they would not have beaten the Redeem team. I think the Redeem team would have beaten the dream team and this current team. But great showing out the bat. And we'll see, where things take us. But it's looking like we might be on the road to the gold.
Yeah. So Morgan, you got anything to add or?
No. I think it's always interesting when you watch a bunch of stars play together and kind of learn how to play together. And the backlash and the things that happen when you have, what is it? Is it 12? Is that the teams at 12 players that all start on their respective teams, and 5 players can start, and so not everybody can start, and there's always going to be conversations about, well, what if, will this, will that, and when you're winning by 20 points, sometimes you have to be creative with the things that you talk about so that it can still stay interesting. But I think this is a really, really solid team. I think that the longer that they play together, the more they play together, the more as a team cohesive they get. It still looks like superstars making plays at times, whereas there's not a lot of passing. Not that there's not passing, but you see sometimes every once in a while some passes that are being intercepted by other people to take shots. And, I think that they generally want to win as a team. And I think that when they get into a situation where they are down, which they were down against Serbia like 10 points, right? And they kind of kicked it into gear. And you kind of, for those short little moments, were able to see that the teamwork there, where it was kind of like whatever it takes to win. And then it kind of seems to go back to superstar play, which I think is a lot sometimes what we see in the NBA. So I hope that we're able to get more glimpses of that team play, because I think that that's what's so pretty. And that's going to be their biggest challenge, is because teams overseas are so focused on that team play. It's just that's why you see so many players that come over from Europe that do excel so well in college, because college is so much about that team play. That I think that'll be there. If they don't get the gold, I think that'll be why it is. And I think, Trey, I think you're right. I think that they are probably on the path to another gold, but that is their biggest roadblock, is going to be if they get down and they decide to all individually try to be the superstar and the hero of the team, that will be their downfall. So I think we just have to wait and see, because the last time they were down, they did kind of overcome it and play as a team, but we hope that that'll continue as we progress. And, we don't, team sports in the Olympics, you don't need it's not a series, it's a game. So you don't need that hero. You want that team to play together.
Yeah. So I think moving on to the next question, can any team really challenge them? I think the only team that can really challenge them is Paris. And I think that's the sole reason why Joel Embiid is on the team, is to, take care of that Wemby and Rudy Gobert problem. But I am of the mindset that the Paris team, riding off the strength of it being essentially a home game, and they've struggled too. Like, they almost lost to Brazil, and Brazil is nothing but people all of our ages playing. They almost lost to Brazil. I think they also struggled against the other team in their group. So it's just the whole thing. But Paris has struggled too. So you even see the teams that are more, Morgan said, more together. France, not Paris. You're right, Trey. Yes, Team France was struggling, but I think Paris is the only team. Obviously, you got to watch out for Spain. Speaking of old timers, you got to watch out for Spain and probably Germany. The only two teams I think, because they all also have NBA players, is Paris. I did it again. Team France and Team Canada, because you look at the Canadian squad, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, every young, long player besides Jamal are on. So Canadians might be a problem, but I think that Team Canada, I think Germany gave them, because they're all a bunch of Dirk Nowitzkis on that team too. Germany might give them a problem if they see Germany again, but I think the two teams that are the biggest threats to the United States are Canada and France. Got it right that time, France. Trey?
No, I pretty much agree with you. We kind of talked about this last week a little bit too, and Morgan, I agree with you. The biggest thing for them is going to be can they gel and play more team ball the way that the rest of the world plays basketball? which is why you look at teams like France, and why players like, let's say, to go back, like a Tony Parker fit so well into the San Antonio Spurs system, and why that worked. I mean, and then also, it's a different type of system, but with the Warriors, right? That was their thing, was move the ball around, lots of screens, everybody's moving on the court. There wasn't a lot of standing around with those teams. So when you have these massive NBA superstars, who many of which are ball dominant players, or are the best player on their team, and their team looks to them in crunch time for the last 5 minutes of the game, that can happen, right? Where they're like, what's going on? And it happened in group play with LeBron. LeBron kind of stepped up in the clutch a couple of times. You had Anthony Davis who stepped up, or Anthony Edwards rather. So for me, I agree with you. I think maybe Germany, but I think generally speaking, it's probably between France and Canada, just because France is, they're a perennially great team when it comes to the Olympics and to just being EuroLeague. And then Canada, you've got a number of high-level NBA players that are playing for Team Canada as well. And they did just, Australia is a great team, but they did just beat, or Team Canada did just beat Team Australia. So I think, if anything, Canada might be somewhat, you look at the roster and you say, oh, okay, they've got a good roster. But I would say they're actually kind of a sleeper to potentially come out on top, if those players can gel the way that some of these other international teams like France and Germany, or any of the other teams can get the team play aspect of moving the ball around and not resorting to 1v1 ball. Now, I will say that is also one of their strengths, because not all the other teams have that ability to say, hey, KD, here's the ball, take over in the last 5 minutes.
That's true.
So I think it's both a strength and a weakness. But I think the problem is where it becomes the weakness is if they rely too heavily on the, hey, KD, hey, LeBron, go do this, or hey, Anthony Davis, or hey, Embiid, go score, and they get too far away from moving the ball around and getting the ball around. And that's the thing. If you're not paying attention to international ball, you would look at, a player and say, well, Bam Adebayo had 18 points. Yes, but to go back to his plus minus was 22. KD only put up 14 points, but his plus minus was 26. So their impact on the court, despite the fact that they didn't even put up, nobody on Team USA put up 20 points, the impact was greater. So putting up 18 points in international ball is like putting up 25 points in the NBA. So yes, there are some teams that can challenge them, but I think they're on the right path, as long as they maintain team play.
Last thing I want to say about this, I've been thinking about this a lot. I want us as the U.S. to get back to putting college coaches as coaching the team. And Kylan will tell you I'm obsessed with Dan Hurley. I'm a gigantic UConn fan, but he would have been the best coach for them this year. I like Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is a great coach, but he's an NBA coach, and that's not what you need to beat some of these other teams. I think you need somebody to come in and shock their asses and make them play as a team and make them condition with oven mitts on and snow gloves and college stuff and make them better players. And I just think that they need something different. Like Steve Kerr is coaching them as if they're an NBA team, and I just think it would be like isn't that why Coach K used to come in and do it? Because he was different, and they all talked about loving that they felt like they were, back in college. They're getting screamed at. They're getting yelled at when they do something wrong. And maybe Steve Kerr is doing that behind the scenes. I don't know, but I don't see that on the court. I don't see the passion from Steve Kerr on the court, whereas I think a college coach would bring that passion. And I think that Dan Hurley would have been a great pick this year with everything, and maybe that is your team wins the national championship the year of the Olympics, you get to come in and coach the Olympics, or you're on the staff. But just like somebody not associated as much with the NBA and whatever it is. I just think that
Mark Few is on the team, so Mark Few is coaching the team. So.
Well, he's not the head coach, and but seriously, Steve Kerr sits there. I don't even think he says anything during the games. You know who he reminds me of? A little bit reminds me of Ron Rivera, and you know how I don't like how coaches like that. They just sit there on the sideline like this.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I want my
Body
coach
face is too good on
fiery
the
and
sideline.
angry all the time.
That was the kiss of death for Ron Rivera. It really wasn't the record. It was when Morgan started doing the.
All right, we can move on. But I've been thinking about that for a few days, and I was just like, I want to bring that back.
You never know. Maybe you don't know who listens to this, so maybe somebody be like, maybe we do need to bring in Hurley. So you never know.
Fly him out for the game.
Yeah. So Joel Embiid didn't play. The promise, the internet trolls got what they wanted. Joel Embiid did not play. So what is your reaction to this, Trey? And I'm not ignoring Morgan. She's she's got Olympics brain. So
currently, I am also, like, for the record, I'm cooking dinner because I have no time to do anything. So
I don't want y'all to think I'm ignoring Morgan. We've already talked about that. She has Olympics brain right now. So
Right.
So and she
I mean, as the Sixers fan, this is Kylan as well. It's kind of like, well, obviously I want to see him on the court, but at the same time, and to add to that too, I think we can agree that with him on the court, they are a better team. But I think it's one of those things where, because it happens in the NBA as well. If Joel Embiid's not on the court with the Sixers, and he said it on, I don't know whose podcast it was, but when he's not on the court, it's kind of like, in the past 5 to 6, 7 years with the Joel Embiid, and in particular the last like 2 or 3 years. Fortunately, though, he's playing with some of the best players in the world, and that's not necessarily the case with Team USA, and we saw that against South Sudan. But I mean, Steve Kerr said it was more of a game time type decision and it was like game plan wise, what they wanted on the court was more like stretch players who could guard, can guard all five. And Joel Embiid is 7'1", 280 pounds, and he's definitely not a guy who can guard, all five. And South Sudan is a very like athletic, lanky, like get up and down the court type of team. So I think it's Joel Embiid, and so you have a lot of trolls and stuff like that who are probably blowing it out of proportion. I don't think he's like injured or anything like that. Would I love to see him on the court? Absolutely. But if coach says, hey, look, we don't need you this game, and I can say that from personal experience, I know how that feels. But if coach says, hey, we don't need you that much this game, and he says, hey, sit on the bench, I'm like, all right, bet. Let me be the best cheerleader I can be on the sideline, and be a leader from the sideline. So.
And you weren't, and none of us are getting paid millions of dollars to sit on the bench. So, like, to me, I think honestly, even though I hated seeing it, like I was watching this with my parents, first question was, first and foremost, like, why did it take them so long on the broadcast side? If you watch the game live, you probably have the same complaints I did, that it took them too long to put that score bug up.
I think something was broken, because I said the same thing. I was like, where's the score bug? Where's the score bug? Insider tip from the Olympics. NBC doesn't run any of the graphics. That all comes through the Olympic Committee. So that all comes through like the host feeds, and we add certain graphics on top of it and the hosts over top of it, or like the commentators, but we don't do the graphics packages. So that's why if you look, all the graphics tend to look the same throughout the Olympics. They're not, and they don't look like NBC's graphics. They're not our graphics. But I'm watching the game. I was like, where are the graphics? Because so that game, both of the games have been on my show, the show that I work on. And I'm like, guys, why don't we have graphics? And they're like, if they're not us, it's not us. It's the IOC. I don't know why it's not there. So yeah. I don't know why it took so long for them to put it in. And I don't think that Noah and D Wade, I don't think they knew that they weren't in, because I feel like Noah would have been updating us on the score more often if he'd known that they weren't in, and maybe they thought they were. I don't know. It's also very weird. We have a producer so the show I work on is USA 2. So we have a producer for USA 2, which is like taking the game feed and putting it out to the universe. But he's not talking to Noah and KD in their ear. That's the basketball producer. It's weird. There's like, it's kind of confusing. So I don't really know what the chain of command was for that and why it took so long to get those graphics up. and why they didn't mention it before. I have a feeling that KD and Noah just didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that. That was my one little gripe about it. But like, yeah, Joel Embiid didn't play. Obviously, like I said, it hurt and helped the agenda. But like, I think that, this team's best lineup, and I'll let Morgan talk. This to me, like, this team's best lineup is always that Joel Embiid in the game. And I think, like, I know Phoenix Suns fans are gonna hate me for this, but I think Devin Booker needs to be on the bench. I just think, or if Steve Kerr wants to go straight offensive, then it needs to be Steph Curry at PG, Devin Booker at SG. I'm just gonna run through it, y'all. The three needs to be KD. I think that's a given. PF can be LeBron, and then you have Joel Embiid. I think that's the best offensive lineup with the best defensive upside that you have, and then Drew Holiday, Devin Booker, Derek White, and Anthony Edwards can be your wing offensive lineup with Anthony Edwards and not Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis, and see, I did it too, Trey. Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo as your PFs. But I just think that's it. I don't know if the whole thing is like they're being careful with KD because he's older. That's probably what it is. But I wasn't mad about it. I thought that if Joel Embiid got to play, like, because he did talk about on that podcast that Trey referenced earlier, that it's kind of weird for him that he didn't say he gets to basically be Jason Tatum, but I'm going to say it, that he basically gets to be Jason Tatum and doesn't have to do anything but the little things to win games. So, but I thought he would come in, be like the sixth man, see what an Embiid, Bam Adebayo, like, front court look like. I think it would have been pretty interesting. But Holly got in for the Pacers fans, Tyrese Halliburton. But, yeah, I mean, my reaction to this is I think Joel Embiid gives this team the best, and I'm taking my Sixers fan hat off. Right, y'all know I like to talk about Joel Embiid. I like to take the Sixers fan hat off. So I think that Joel Embiid is the best. You can debate it, but he's one of the top three players on this team. He needs to play right with KD. Y'all seen that without a screener, Steph Curry is pretty useless. So, I mean, Joel Embiid needs to be in just because he's the best screener on the team. And I know Sixers fans who are like, he doesn't really screen, Kyle. I mean, he's gotten a lot better. Like, so that's what he screens. This is going to help him later. I talked about this last week. So I think Joel Embiid needs to play. I think you will see Joel Embiid against Puerto Rico, which is basically a guaranteed win. So, like, I hate belittling Puerto Rico, but I mean, they've got our boy Carlos Arroyo still playing. So, I mean, it's a wrap for Puerto Rico. I mean, there could be a shock here, but I think it's a wrap. I think Joel Embiid is going to be really, really mad and take it out, not to playfully mad, but really mad and take it out on Puerto Rico. So that's where I'm at with Joel Embiid. I think he should have played, but I'm not mad at him resting. As Dwayne Wade said on the broadcast, I'm not mad at him resting. So that helps him, and they were all out in the rain. They say he's battling a flu, so if that helps him get over his flu faster, I'm all for it. Morgan, you got anything to add?
I don't, but that is unfortunately. Wait, what's the next topic? Let me see if I can do it real quick before I gotta hop off.
What's the best lineup for Team USA?
Yeah, this is you guys. My brain is hit capacity of working today. I will be back in the office at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So I got to go to bed. I got to eat my pasta, take a shower, and cuddle up into bed so I don't die.
All right. Well, look, great seeing you. Like we said, Morgan was going to be in or out depending on what was going on in the Olympics. So we thank you for joining us. And
thank you guys for having me. Thank you for carrying the ship. And I will hopefully see you guys next week on the tail end of the Olympics. So who knows? I don't know if I'll be more rested or more delirious. We'll see. So see you guys. Have a great day. Have a good night. And go Team USA.
Amen. All right. Let's go. See ya. So what's the best lineup for Team USA men's basketball, Trey?
I think we kind of talked about this the other week. Was it last week? We've kind of talked about this a number of times in the last couple of weeks.
KD hadn't played yet. So.
Right, KD hadn't played. So I mean, in my opinion, I think it's pretty much what you said. I think actually, I would say Steph. We've seen that Devin Booker can kind of get on, but he struggled So if, in my opinion, actually, and this is my bias, I would throw like Anthony Edwards or Derek White in at the 2 next to Steph. And then your 3 is KD, your 4 is LeBron, and your 5 rather is Joel Embiid. And you do whatever combination you want to do of your bench, like, Drew at the 1, then probably, Book at the 2, or maybe Book at the 3, and then Tyrese. You can do whatever maybe Jason Tatum at the 4, and Bam at the 5. But
what do you do with AD?
And that's the thing, right? What do you do with AD? This is a little bit more of my bias showing. AD is a phenomenal player. But if you watch AD play enough, you watch the Lakers, you watch them, even if you go back to college. I remember watching him in college at Kentucky, and he is one of those players where he doesn't necessarily have a particular play style. He's best at the 4. And so it's hard on this particular team, I think, for me to place him. But I think I do agree with you that he should be somewhere in the second unit, maybe as the 5, or maybe even do something weird and you put Bam at the 5 and he's at the 4, because obviously Anthony Davis can shoot and Bam is not a great shooter. I don't know, but I think that top 5 is definitely Steph, and I think you really do throw Book onto your bench, and you sub in like Derek. You sub in like Derek or Anthony Edwards in at the 2, and then I agree with you on the rest of the lineup. The 3, 4, 5 is KD, Bron, Embiid.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's the best 5, right? I think I kind of forgot about Anthony Edwards, but I think you throw in Steph. We love that boy Drew, but I think he's more of us in the starting 5 if you need to shut down the defender. Like if you're got to see a Carlik Williams or an offensive guard, then yeah, you put Drew in the starting lineup. But I think the lineup should be, like I said, Steph Curry. If you want it to be Book or you want it to be Anthony Edwards, like it depends on what you need. You probably should start Book just because he's been starting. Put him at his more natural SG. Let Kevin Durant and an SF or Jason Tatum if you want to get froggy. Like, KD's not ready. Put in Jason Tatum. And then just LeBron and Joel Embiid is your front court. Because I think, honestly, I think your top 3 players are Embiid, Bron, Steph Curry. And I think that dynamic, I think without, like I said, I mean, you kind of saw it, right? Like without that person to screen for Steph, it took him a while. Without somebody to take that offensive attention away, which is usually, it's been Joel Embiid these last 5 games, Bron had a tough time getting off, right? Like it took him forever to get off, right? Like, and that's why that game was so slow to begin with, right? It took them forever to get off. They didn't really start picking up till Anthony Edwards got that offensive rebound dunk, and then it started picking up. Before a while, it was looking like it was going to be a slog again, right? So I think that's your starting 5. Your front court, KD, Bron, Joel Embiid, and then Steph at the point, and then you can interchange it between Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards. I know the Timberwolves fans would expect me to say Anthony Edwards. I'm going to say Anthony Edwards, but I think Devin Booker deserves a reward for holding it down at the small forward without Kevin Durant. So that's what I
agree with you. And I think too, the reason why I say bringing somebody like Derek White in is because Derek White is a great defender, but he can also shoot and he can run the true point. And if you pay attention to basketball enough, you know that on that Warriors team, Draymond Green was really, although Steph was playing the 1, Draymond Green was the one facilitating that offense. And that's where Steph kind of fits in the best, is where somebody else can kind of run the offense and Steph can literally run around the court in circles and get screens to get open. Right. Not to say that obviously Steph is a phenomenal ball handler and can play off the dribble and get himself open and get open shots. We saw that when he won 2 MVPs in a row, or rather the unanimous MVP. But no, I agree with you. I think for the coaches, I think the one thing they need to figure out, regardless of what your starting lineup is, because if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm like, okay, 1, what's my best lineup? But 2, he's gonna inevitably social bias to Steph. So how do I get Steph going? How do I put the best pieces around him as far as shooting and facilitating to get him going?
And the best thing for Steph is to have Joel Embiid in that lineup. Or if you really want Steph to get off and you just want to throw something at the wall to help the Pacers fans out, the only pure point guard they have is Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
And we saw, even though his shot's a little funny, he can make shots. So I think if they put Halliburton in there to run the point and then have Steph at a small-ish shooting guard, or they can still have Steph be the PG, but let Devin Booker can run it too. I don't want to disrespect Devin Booker because he's basically the point guard in Phoenix anyway. So I don't want to disrespect Devin Booker, but I just think if you're looking for playmaking, Tyrese Halliburton is sitting right there on your bench, and he led the league in assists. Like, put him in, Steve Kerr, and then I think if you see Halliburton, now you're just throwing it all off because I was about to say Anthony Edwards, but since you talk about playmaking, now I got Halliburton in my head. I think it should be Halliburton, Steph Curry, KD, Bron, Joel, and I think that lineup will clear. I think that lineup will clear. But I everybody knows I'm very partial to Anthony Edwards, but the one thing he does not do yet is play make, and I think he's getting there. And I think he'll learn playing next to Derek White, Drew Holiday, and them how to be a better two-way and a playmaker. So we'll see. And you can't. I want to see a lineup with Joel Embiid and Anthony Edwards on the floor at the same time because I want to see those lobs. I want to see those lobs that clearly are happening. So moving right along to the women. For those of you that were watching it live, like I was a few hours ago, you saw them kind of struggle against Belgium, a team with a little bit more size, but they blew out Japan on Monday. So, Trey, what's the reaction to the Belgium and Japan matchups for Team USA for the women so far?
I mean, I think it's a situation, it's a similar thing, right? Where you have, like, I'm looking at the box score. Kelsey Plum played 12 minutes, only hit one basket. She had 2 points, I think. 2 points, I think. No, and then
she had a layup, 2 points. You're right.
Right. Asia Wilson did her thing. Stewie did her thing.
Right.
But nobody else was in double figures. And so, like we were talking about earlier, with team play, I think with them it's going to be the same thing. They need to figure out. They gotta get their chemistry going. They were still able to come out on top. They won by 13 points, but they got to figure out chemistry wise what lineup works the best. What players fit the best on the court together, and not only what players fit on the court best together, but once you figure that out, what's the play style, right? Is it give it to Stewie and Asia and let them do their thing? Is it a more team-oriented play where it's a lot of ball movement and swinging the ball around? Is it a really fast-paced, play style? And this is actually for the men's team as well. Is it a very fast pace? Is it a slower pace? But at the end of the day, that you look at, you say, okay, they won by 13, and you only had 2 players that scored. You had 2 players who scored 20 plus points, and nobody else was in double figures, and they still won by 13 and beat one of the better teams in the Olympics. So to me, what that says is, okay, Team USA on the women's side of things has something really good going for them. But I can see a scenario where this could come to bite them in the butt, right? When they go up against maybe one of the better teams. I mean, I guess Belgium is one of the better teams. Let me look at the schedule. Who comes up next? I think they have Germany next, right? You play a team like Germany, and I think they blew out Germany by like 30 points. But the team and they lost by 2 in group play, or 2 or 3 points in group play to Belgium. So they've already beaten the team that they struggled against the most. And then you've got like Nigeria, Senegal, Japan, and who they already played. And I'm trying to think of who else is left other than Germany. But
Spain.
I think they're Spain, right? I think they're on the path to another gold. But I could see a team like a Spain, for example, that's a well-oiled team, and they play together on a regular basis, that could cause that offense to completely go dry, and give them some real trouble. I think they were really lucky that Belgium wasn't quite on the way they were the first time they played. So I guess we'll I think it's a we'll see type of situation, and I'm not quite worried. But they gotta get it together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm not worried. I think that I think that Brianna Stewart really saved them this game, and so did Asia Wilson, even though she got kind of beat up this game by the size of Belgium. I think Team USA, when they face bigger teams, needs to put Brittany Griner in, and insert her into the starting lineup. You could probably put Diana Taurasi or Nafisa Kali or whoever you want to put on the bench. You could do that. But I think when they face the bigger teams, you probably could stand. I know they kind of lose size because Asia Wilson, they don't really have a center outside of Asia and Brittany Griner, but I think that they could have been helped by that. But Nafisa Collier made some late shots at the 3-point line. Serena Nescu, obviously, and I think another thing is I love Chelsea Gray and Diana Taurasi together, but you probably should sit one of them down and put Sabrina in to have like a better point guard in the game. But that's just my personal opinion. I know it's going to make some of the Aces and Mercury fans mad at me for speaking that blasphemy that Diana Taurasi and or Chelsea Gray should be coming off the bench for Sabrina Ionescu, but I just think she's the best pure point. It's the same thing with the men, right? Like, you need the best player that's going to like pass the ball well. Obviously, Chelsea Gray is a great passer, but she had a few turnovers. So did Diana Taurasi. Taurasi didn't really have a good game. Neither did Chelsea Gray. But like I said, they kind of got saved by that dynamic of having Stewie and Asia Wilson putting up 20-plus points, getting all those assists, getting those rebounds. But I think that when they face the bigger teams like Belgium, I don't think there's many big teams like Belgium in there. But you probably need to like do better. Obviously, their strength of their lineup is going to show up next game, as Trey said, against Germany. There's another team that gave them trouble, both the men and the women. So we'll see. But I think that they're on the path to get a gold medal. I just think they need to figure out if, between Diana Taurasi and Chelsea Gray, when it gets to the medal time next week, who's coming off? Is Diana Taurasi coming off the bench? Does she find her shot next game? And is that no longer a conversation? But I think Sabrina Ionescu probably should start, and or Jackie Young. I just think you need a playmaker in there, and I think that's what's really missing. Somebody who can calm it down and like can just make good passes, pass people open. Chelsea Gray can do that. She just didn't have a good game. So I think between Chelsea Gray and Diana Taurasi, Coach Reeve needs to figure out who needs to sit and put in Sabrina Ionescu. And other than that, I think the women are on a good path. And I think that they will be in the medal game later, but we'll see. So moving right along, can any team challenge the women? I think Belgium can. I think Germany can. We'll see on Sunday what that looks like. But I think Germany and Belgium are like the two teams that'll give them the most trouble. And like I said, I think they need to figure out a way to put Brittany Griner and Sabrina Ionescu into the starting lineup without messing up the chemistry too much. And I think they need to start experimenting this next game, because I know Germany's good, but I think the women are good enough to be able to beat them. So that's why I'm at. Belgium and Germany are like the teams that I think can challenge the women on that side. What about you, Trey?
No, yeah, I'm in agreement. I think, and perhaps Spain as well. But if you're looking at like the standings across the groups, you got Serbia, Spain, France, USA, Germany, and Belgium are all USA and Germany are all 2-0. Belgium, I think, is a challenge for them. Obviously, we saw that they only won, by 13, but Belgium rather is 0-2. So obvious, I think yes. The obvious answer to the question is yes. There are some teams that can challenge them. I would probably say the biggest challenge is probably going. I mean, France is a question there too, but I think coming up next is probably going to be one of their bigger challenges in Germany next. When is that? Tomorrow,
Sunday.
Sunday. So what they need to do in that time frame is they need to figure out the best lineup, like you said, figure out who's going to be your point. Doesn't matter who it is, you got to figure out and make that decision. Let them be on the court, and hopefully they play well. And I agree with you. When they play some bigger teams, Brittany Griner should probably be on the court. She only had like 7 or 8 minutes, but put up. She had so it was about 11 minutes. Put up 7 points, a couple of rebounds. Might have had a block or two, and that's in 11 minutes, right? So imagine if she had 20 minutes. Impact on the game might have been even more, even greater. So yeah, I mean that's really all I can say. They got to figure out that lineup, and I think at the end of the day, even the teams that can challenge them are, I don't think they're necessarily better than Team USA. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so moving right along to some more Olympics coverage. Team USA gymnastics win gold in team competition. And obviously, we're probably not going to get to them because the women dominated these last couple of days. But shout out to the men. I could just say this was a shout out series, but I want to shout out the men, the men's gymnastics team for finally winning a bronze for the first time in 16 years. They won a medal, so shouts out to them. We do want to give the men some love because we probably won't talk about them because the women were so dominant these last few days. So we do want to give them a shout. So. I'm impressed, man. I think that, we'll get to Suni Lee and Simone Biles in a minute, but I think this was a team of comebacks, right? I mean, that's where we got Freak Around and Find Out from. For those of you that don't know, like 2 days ago, Simone Biles said she couldn't, she had gymnastics brain like Morgan, like Olympics.
What's the abbreviation? How do you, is it F? A around? No, I'm making fun of how she answered the question.
I know. It was hilarious. She obviously was tired and she wasn't thinking. I've done that. I know Trey has done that too. So we have all done that. But FAFO, for the people that watch this, I'm not gonna curse. So freak around and find out. So is the cleaner version of that. So I was really impressed with the women. I think that everybody did their job. I feel kind of sorry for Hazley Rivera. She still got a gold medal, but we don't know. It doesn't look like she'll get a chance to perform. But obviously she's only 16, so obviously every Olympics isn't promised, but she's likely in 4 years to probably be one of the. I hate saying it like it's basketball or team sport, but like a starter. Just because I know she's considered an alternate. And obviously Simone Biles will be 31. And we don't know if she'll retire or not. I'm not going to break any news, but I know that she did have a quote where she basically was like, Rebecca can have it after this. So, I mean, you can read into that what you will. Like, she is going to be 31 in the next Olympics. Now, Simone Biles is great. But she has 4 years. We don't know if it's over or not. I don't think it's over, but I'm just saying based on the quote today, it sounds like she might be thinking about it. That's all I'm going to say because I'm not in her head, but she did say, and this is a direct quote, that after this, Rebecca can have it. So you take that to mean what you want. So I don't know her mindset, but I think that this was a great time. Like Jade Carey was sick. She did well on the vault. Suni Lee did well on bars. Like, what can you say about Jordan Childs? Like, she golded up. Like, it was a great, 2 days ago was great to see them come together as a team and win, despite the fact that, like I said, Jay Carey was sick. Obviously, Michaela Skinner's words got to them, but they took care of business. And I'm just proud of them. Like, I'm proud of Simone, came back, dealt with her mental health, has a therapist on hand at the games this year. And she just seems to be in a great place. Married, seems to be in a great mental space. And seems like she's just focused on winning. And Suni Lee too, overcoming a debilitating kidney disease that cost her a college career. I mean, what can you say? It's just a team of comebacks, and this is the oldest team we probably will ever have at the Olympics, just because like, and by old I mean they're all in their like 20s besides Hazley, she's 16, but like it's a great team, and what more can you say? The Golden Girls, I think, is what they're called. They're really leading into the old, everybody being old except Hazley. So, Trey, you got anything to add?
I'd say, how do I put this? When you look at our women's gymnastics team, they're probably the best team out of all of our sports. Team USA women's gymnastics is probably the best team that we have.
Well, I'd say the best individual team. Like,
yeah. Because other than Katie Ledecky is kind of like a solo team, but right. And we'll talk about her later. But
well, like I said, I think the women's basketball fans would be like, they're going for 8 straight. That's the best team. But like that's why I said individual. It's a bunch of individuals. So like it's not a gymnastic. It's not a. It is, but it isn't.
It isn't. Yeah.
So like that's why I'm kind of like, I don't want you getting roasted by the women's basketball fans that are like, Team USA is going for their 8th straight gold medal. What do you mean? So
yeah. But regardless, I mean, you mentioned it before we hopped on. You were talking about Simone, and the way she's able to, like, just the bounce that she has. And she's 4'8", but like, I mean, I would venture to say we'll get into this again, like Suni Lee, the rest of the team, Simone, you can't be anything but impressed. I wasn't able to watch everything. I saw clips here and there. But and then the other thing too is, people were kind of worried about Simone's calf injury, and clearly that did not, impact. And so they were able to get the gold, and individually she has the gold, and then I guess Suni got bronze, I believe, right?
Correct.
So they're just going to continue to dominate, and I think the majority of other people didn't expect anything less. So,
yeah. So moving right along to what happened today, Simone Biles gets gold. Trey just referenced it. Suni Lee gets bronze. Rebecca Andrade gets silver in the all-around competition. And like I said, this was just a crazy time. Like, Simone actually was sweating this contest because Rebecca Andrade is next. She is her. Like, she's probably gymnastics she's going to probably be like take it over after. Obviously, I want to give all due respect to our American gymnasts who are alternates right now, who will step up next. We don't really know who's the next, but it seems like Rebecca is next, because Simone basically said it today after the competition that Rebecca is going to be next in gymnastics. Obviously, the Americans have something to say, but Rebecca seems like she's got that bounce. She's 2 years younger than Simone, 25. So seems like the older gymnasts, half joking here, the older gymnasts are going to take over the sport. So, I mean, what more can you say? Like, I think I want to spend, we just talked about Simone. Simone's great. She did a great job. We were all tuned into the all-arounder. If you're not, pause this right now. Go watch the all-around, because I think it's on right now. Or if not, pause this. If you're watching this the next day or in the morning or afternoon tomorrow or the next day, pause this, go to Peacock and watch it, or watch the highlights. But Simone Biles, what more can you say? Like, she's great. She's the greatest gymnast ever. She's the GOAT of gymnastics. I know that Gabby Douglas might have something to say about that, but Gabby Douglas inspires Simone, and Simone's the GOAT. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. And then after that, it's probably Suni Lee. So like, Suni Lee defended her title. She lost, but she won. She didn't get gold, but she got bronze. She did way better than most people thought, especially after recovering from a debilitating kidney disease. Like, I mean, Suni Lee is like the comeback kid of these Olympics, man. I think it's just when you recover from a debilitating kidney disease, like she said, she like went to bed one day at Auburn. She woke up, couldn't get up, couldn't swallow, could barely get up out of bed. Like, this is a girl that's what, 20, 22 now? Like, she got to be about 21, 22 now. But to deal with that.
I believe she's 21.
21 to deal with that. She's got a later birthday then to deal with that. At 20, 21 years old in college, like after you just got a gold medal, like ruin your collegiate gymnastics career, and like they thought she'd never flip again, right? And like look at her now, like a bronze medal winner. Like if she wins bronze or silver, because obviously everybody thinks that this is a two gymnast race for gold between Andrade and and Biles, but like if she finds a way to win silver or bronze again, like she'll be right there as the second all-time winningest gymnast in American history, obviously after Simone. So she's got a chance to be in history and retire. Retire at least from the Olympics. Like she'll probably still compete in worlds and stuff, but I'm not saying any of them will retire, but I'm just saying like after this a second Olympics. Like most people don't get in gymnastics at least a second or third Olympics. So these last couple of teams were just like world beaters. So like in because gymnastics, like Trey said, in America is just that competitive. You don't get more than one Olympics, right? Like so I'm just amazed. Suni Lee deserves all the praise. Like Simone is great. Me and Trey just sung her praises in the previous segment, so I'm gonna sing Suni Lee's praises. Like, great job, still being a top 3 gymnast in the world after recovering from a kidney disease. Like, I think that that's a story that deserves to be told, and it's great that Suni was able to get on the podium, shock the world. Not really shock the world, but shock the world because most people thought she'd be 4th, 5th, or 6th, and she wound up medaling. So good for her, Trey.
Yeah, so I mean I was struggling to find my unmute button. No, you pretty much said it all. I think the other thing to think about too is I was watching for those who watch this, if we got any women or men, I guess probably watch it too, but I saw this clip from the Call Her Daddy podcast with Simone Biles. And she was talking about for those who remember back when Simone Biles got the twisties and had that whole mental block situation, and to see that, and then also on the more fun side of things, going back, I guess that was the 2012 Olympics. I can't remember, but her and Lord have mercy, Zac Efron kind of reunited. But I think my point being that Simone has had her trials to go through. And like I mentioned, the calf strain, she's had her mental health issues that she's had to deal with, like a number of other Olympic athletes have had to deal with. And boom, she's right back, and she's winning gold at the Olympics. So shout out to both of them for bringing that home, because if you really look at it, and this is more grand speaking, if you're looking at who has the most medals, we at US Team USA does have the most medals overall at the Olympics, but we are kind of lagging behind on the golds. So thank you to Simone Biles for that.
Yeah, man. So moving right along, what will the legacy of Simone Biles be? I think she's going to be she's going to be the person who brought, like, after Gabby Douglas, like, she's going to be the person that made gymnastics popular just around the world and around this country too. Like, it was already popular, but like, Gabby Douglas was the first Black gold medalist since Dolls, and now it's like it's really just it's her, and Simone just kind of took it and became the GOAT. She dominated. I mean, if you want to get technical and make a tennis reference, right? Like, Gabby was like the Venus Williams. She came, she dominated, she saw, she conquered, she became pop culture. I was about to say Nicki Simone. Nicki Minaj had a song like, I'm winning gold like Gabby. She was at the VMAs. She did all the TV shows after she won in 2012. And like literally, that wasn't that long. It was 14 years ago, right? Like, she did all that winning. Like, she made it popular. Then then she made it again. But Simone Biles got it. This is when the Larry Nassar stuff happened. She won another gold, but like she kind of went off because she kind of wanted to do an acting career, get away from gymnastics, clear her head, and then Simone kind of took it over after that, right? Like, Gabby had that one more Olympics in 2016, and then Simone kind of took it from there. Like she said, all right, girl, you go do you. I got this. And that's exactly what happened. Like Simone dominated. And like now, like, you know, it's gymnastics was always international, but it's even more international. People care. Like you've got like just what happened. Like you got Steph Curry showing up to gymnastics at his first Olympics on the day off, showing up to see Simone Biles, Serena Williams, Seth Rogen, LeBron James, like Snoop Dogg. I mean, you've got Tom Cruise, all these famous people. There was rumors that Taylor Swift was going to be there, but you got all these famous people like who were in France, right? They don't want to see LeBron. They don't want to see Joel Embiid. They don't want to see Steph Curry. They are coming out to see Simone Biles. Like, you know, it's not too many people that can make LeBron, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid like a sideshow. And that's the greatness of Simone Biles. Like, you know, you saw the shot a couple of days ago, right? You see Serena and Michael Phelps looking nervous in the crowd, and then you pan to Simone breathing and just dominating like goat. Like I'm just saying, like the only thing that was missing was Michael Jordan. Like you got so many people that want to see Simone Biles like perform. And I think that just says it all. Like she's made gymnastics even more popular than it already was. Like Gabby Douglas made it pop culture. Like, you know, there was like, again, kind of like the Williams sisters, right? Venus dominated, and like I don't want to disrespect Venus Williams. Like for those of us who were around for that, us millennials, like we know that Venus Williams was a GOAT. She is a GOAT, but her career kind of got overshadowed because Serena was just that dominant. And so that's Simone Biles and Gabby Douglas. I don't want to disrespect Gabby because I'm a huge fan. Trey knows I love Gabby Douglas. Like I'm a huge fan of Gabby Douglas, but her legacy kind of got overshadowed by Simone because Simone just took it and ran with it to the point where like I kind of think that she hasn't said this. I'm just speculating here. I kind of think that I wouldn't be surprised if she was winning gold medals at 31 years old, like in 4 years. Like that's how popular I think she is. Like she is definitely that good. Like she could have her Tom Brady moment and still be dominating these people at 31 years old. So I just think she's the GOAT. Like that's her legacy. She took gymnastics and made it a world phenomenon. Like people want to see her. Like that doesn't really happen at the Olympics a lot, where you're like taking crowd shots and it looks like an all-star game or an NBA Finals or a Super Bowl. Like these next three events is just going to be like a Super Bowl with all these celebrities who want to see Simone.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think her legacy is that, you know, 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, we'll look back and say, yeah, I think Simone Biles is probably the greatest gymnast, women gymnast of all time, at least. And one of the greatest Olympic
she's
athletes of all time.
Overall gymnast,
And,
like, you know.
Yeah, no,
overall gymnast.
Now, the interesting thing is, and I think this is because I think this will impact Simone's legacy, is Gabby's coming back in 2028. And the last time they were teammates, as you mentioned, was 2016. So I think that's going to be interesting because it's like, I don't even know what you would compare it to. It's like, I'm not even sure, but you got who most people are now considering the GOAT in Simone Biles, and the person who kind of paved the way for, at least in the modern era, for Simone and Gabby Douglas, going to be potentially back on the same team again, competing. So I'm sure there'll be some friendly competition even between Team USA. But the good thing in those who have played sports, having better players on your team actually makes you better because it makes you compete better. Because if you're a competitor in that nature, you look at your teammate next to you and you say, you know, they're like, I'm put up 30, I'm gonna put up 35. So there's, you know, you never know. But I think even more so next year, we'll be looking at Simone's legacy and saying, wow, especially if she's able to take a gold next year over Gabby, who hasn't played, or she's competed. I think she competed in Worlds and stuff.
Yeah, she competed at Worlds, but she had to pull out because she hurt her hamstring.
Right.
I mean, she's a little bit older. I guess she's like 28. 27. She's like a little bit. She's like the same age or a little bit older.
Yeah. So Gabby is 28, I think, but
Simone is 27. So
yeah, I think we're looking at potentially the goat
we're looking at
of gymnastics.
Yeah, we're looking at two people in their 30s, like competing at the Olympics.
In a sport where typically, I mean, people are like, well, retiring, or even thinking about someone like Suni Lee or any other, like retiring. Like, well, she's so young. I mean, these gymnasts start like very, very young. So retiring at 30 or 31 might seem crazy, but I mean, they've been doing gymnastics probably since they were like, 8-9 years old. So
yeah, man. So moving right along, the athlete or team, I should say athletes or team of the Olympics so far. Trey, I'm gonna let you go first.
I might be stealing yours, but I think Katie Ledecky in my mind, because I was watching I can't remember what I was doing, but I guess I was scrolling through Instagram or something, and I saw the live feed of her swimming, and I was like watching her swim, and I was like, is this actually the live feed of the Olympics, or is this like a practice or something? Like, what's going on? And the reason why is because there was nobody else on the screen but her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then when she turned back and came back the other direction, I saw the other swimmers, and she was literally like something like, I don't know, 13 or 14 seconds ahead of somebody. If you've ever swam in a pool and tried to swim from one end of the pool to the other, imagine being 14 seconds ahead of the person behind you. Like,
right.
That's insane for any sport where it's a race. Like that's an insane distance for NASCAR. That's an insane distance for track and field. I mean, like, being 14 seconds ahead of somebody is absolutely insane. To the point where I didn't see the other swimmers on the screen, and I have a large TV. Like, so Katie Ledecky is probably the athlete of the year. So, I mean, and she's, I think we'll kind of get more into it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to do both. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought. Okay. So, like, my athlete, I'm gonna say, I think I gotta give it to. First, let me say this. I think my athlete is gonna be Lauren Scruggs, because for those of you that don't know, she is the first black person. Shouts out to Queens, New York. She's the first black athlete to win a medal. She won 2 medals, but an individual medal in fencing, and the fencing team won their first gold medal in a while. So, like, this is a decorated team. She's gone to Harvard. She's 21 years old. So I think that's the athlete of the Olympics for me, just because, like, fencing is not something that a lot of black people do. And just that she could be able to do that and dominate the sport and get a silver medal. And then the team just won gold today overall in the team competition. Another sport that's like an individual sport, but there's also a team sport, fencing. I also want to shout out, and I'm kind of like taking all my shout outs from the shout out series, but let's give it up for the rugby team. You want to talk about a team, bro? Like, somebody who's had the Olympics of the year, like Ilyana Mahar, like, I think they were talking about like her Instagram followers and how they've shot out by like 200K or 300K, like, and it's done the same thing for TikTok. But like, she might be the Olympics correspondent of the year. Like, she's definitely up there for me. And like, we kind of talked about her off air, but like, I love her. Like, I hope she does well. In a sport that, like, most people like often really don't care about in rugby, but like, great job. That's the team of the Olympics for me. Winning bronze. Lauren Scruggs, winning, being the first black person to win a medal in fencing. Like, she's got the potential to be the Gabby Douglas or the Simone Biles of fencing, right? Because it's not a sport that most people care about. Like, some of y'all are probably thinking, like, you're probably thinking of fencing and pop culture, and the only thing you could probably really think of besides the Three Musketeers is, that one, and Trey knows where I'm going with this. Like, I'm a 90s kid and a 2000s kid, but I also want to say that, like, that iCarly episode with Freddie Benson and the fencing is probably what most of y'all are thinking of, because there's not too many pop culture fencing references other than Three Musketeers and Freddie Benson. If Trey can think of one, I'll welcome it, but I think that's the only two I can think of is the Three Musketeers and that iCarly episode where Freddie was fencing. So, like, I think that that's great. I think rugby has a chance. I think that they just got a $4 million donation to the program. Obviously, like, for those of you that saw Iana's recent video, Jason Kelsey, for the more local reference, is the mascot of the team now, like, because they wanted to copy, since, the water polo team has Flavor Flav. They wanted somebody who's just as amped up as Flavor Flav, and, how more amped up can you be but Jason Kelsey? Like, so, shouts out to the rugby team, shouts out to the fencing team. Like, I think that's the athletes of the team. And obviously, like I said, the men's gymnastics team. And what more can you say? Finally winning that bronze medal. And you got the dude that I think is cross-eyed, bro. He might be like the dude that did the pommel horse. Like, shouts out to him, even though he has like a disability, still being an Olympic athlete. So, like, just shouts out to him. Shouts out to all those people. You went. So moving right along, Paige Beckers. Unfortunately, we're talking about UConn and Morgan isn't here. but for those of you that saw this morning, Paige Beckers signed a huge NIL deal with Unrivaled, which is a summer/fall league after WNBA. She's kind of doing what most people wanted Caitlin Clark to do, but she's doing it after the WNBA season, and she gets an ownership stake in Unrivaled. It's about $250,000 or more. And, like, Paige Beckers basically has probably like the highest. I'm not, without knowing all the UConn athletes, it might be a gymnast, but she probably has like a top 3 NIL package in UConn at UConn currently. So, like, this is great for her. I mean, my reaction to this is great for her, man. Like I said, after Caitlin Clark or before Caitlin Clark, there was Paige Beckers, and it's good to see her finally be able to cash in on her fame after finally having a healthy season. And she is that girl. Like, a lot of y'all aren't going to get it because Caitlin Clark took up a lot of the oxygen, but Paige Beckers is like, if Caitlin Clark was, I don't want to be disrespectful. Caitlin Clark is a great playmaker, but, like, Paige Beckers is a playmaker's playmaker. Like, when you see Paige Beckers play, like, you kind of see the influence of being from Minneapolis, having a black stepmother. Like, she plays like, for those of you black people that play with, like, in multiracial, like, communities, like, she kind of plays like that white boy or white girl that you just know has a lot of black friends. That's how she plays. That's how she sounds. That's her game. Like, when you see her, it's like, this is a girl that can drop like 30 points on you while getting 20 assists, like, and can still get like 20 rebounds because she is that girl. So, like, I'm not surprised. I'm happy for her. It's definitely going to put a lot more eyes on Unrivaled. And it's definitely a good alternative to avoiding, Brittany Griner's situation of getting in trouble internationally. And it gives these players an alternative besides playing internationally. So I'm happy for her, and Paige can, like, kind of be the Simone Biles of the Gabby Douglas and take Unrivaled to heights it's never been to. Trey?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The thing about Paige, so I'll agree with you because if you haven't watched Paige Beckers, go on YouTube and look up like a highlight tape of Paige Beckers. I mean, even go back to our high school days. If you just watch her play, she's one of those players. So I'm going to speak to the younger generations if they happen to watch this. But for those who are on TikTok, they know that, or you're just in general chronically online like I am. There's a particular player who's on the Sixers now, Paul George, who has kind of become. There's a
GOAT.
thing on no, not the GOAT, but there's like this trend. It's been going on for years, but it's kind of taken wings on platforms like TikTok, where you'll take a quick highlight tape of an athlete, and you'll create an edit and you'll put like a song over it, and there'll be kind of some flashy edits with like lights and stuff.
Right.
And Paul George was one of those players. But Paige Beckers is one of those players as well, where people will take clips of her highlights from. I'm talking high school. These are high school highlights, and the reason why they do Paul George that way is because Paul George has kind of become his game is relatively smooth. He has, it's a fun and pleasant game to watch, and the same with Paige Beckers. So I'm happy she's healthy. I'm happy she's signed this deal, and I'm going to make a prediction with Paige. I think Paige actually has what Caitlin doesn't, which is Caitlin is kind of aloof, right? Yeah, for those who pay attention, there was a moment, I think it was last week, where she kind of tried to sneak past. She walked in to whatever red carpet or whatever, and she kind of tried to sneak past all the paparazzi and stuff. And it was kind of this like really awkward moment. Whereas I think somebody like Paige, I think she walks in and she relishes in that. And although I think they're similar in that they don't say much, I think Paige has a more outgoing personality. So I'm excited to see what she'll do at UConn this year, and hopefully what she'll do in the WNBA now that she's healthy. And I hope I do actually, because for those who have paid attention, it really truly is that Paige walked so that Caitlin could run, because Paige was that kind of first person who kind of got that fame, and then Paige got Paige got that fame first, and then Paige got injured, and Caitlin Clark kind of took on the mantle. So I'm looking forward to it. I like her game. She just has like the best way to put it, she has a real smooth game, and a healthy Paige Beckers is a good thing for basketball. So,
Amen. So moving right along to another one of these breaking stories that happened today and before the Olympics started or during. Gordon Hayward decided that he doesn't want to be a bench player. He doesn't want to be a role player on for a contender. It's time for him to retire. So Gordon Hayward retired, and Trey, what's your reaction to this?
I'm not quite shocked by it, because I mean he's been in the league for, I don't know, 15 years or so.
2010,
and he's one of those guys who, I mean, if you look at, let's say, the last 5 years of his career, and his history with the Jazz. Speaking of white players who kind of, you watch their game and you were kind of like, oh, okay, I see who he was playing around with, or I see who she was playing with, back in the day when she was, playing on the blacktop. Gordon Hayward was that guy early in his career. And then, he had that, in particular, the one leg injury that we all saw and were kind of like, oh my gosh. So it's, and I think it's a shame that he hasn't been able to make it happen and get on a team and win a ring. But, I think he's only, let's say he's 34. So he's relatively young. I mean, when you're thinking about how long players are playing now. So good job to Gordon Hayward. He's had a great career. There's a chance he's a Hall of Famer, based on what he did on Utah, and kind of early what he did in Boston and Charlotte. But yeah, congrats on a great career for Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, I mean, I am of the mindset. Shout out to Lehigh's own Gordon Hayward. I mean, that's where, for those of you that don't know, he really got amped up, missing that half court shot that almost beat Duke. What could have been for Lehigh University and Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So you really have, like, he was a great player. Like Trey said, he kind of ended up in Utah, helped them like stay relevant. Was really on some good Utah teams that never, like, if there was a player that was on a good team that never really was, it was Gordon Hayward on those Utah Jazz teams. And then he went to the Celtics, had a good few years, then broke his leg. We all remember that, kind of one of the grossest leg injuries ever. And I am of the mindset that he never fully recovered from that. It's unfortunate that the OKC thing didn't work out. And I like Gordon Hayward. I like this game. I thought he was a really good player. like Trey says, unfortunate that he wasn't able to get a ring or didn't want to be a role player on the team. It didn't really suit him to be like a 14, 15, 20. I mean, a 14, 15, 20-minute player, he could definitely do that, but I guess he wanted to be a starter, and it really wasn't working out. And he could always come back. Like, we've seen people make comebacks off retirements before. So who's to say, like, somebody can't convince him to come back. But, it's a great career. Unfortunately, like, another player who had a great career and is going to retire without a ring just because the unfortunate bad luck of being drafted by Utah and on teams that really were good but really weren't that good. So it's very unfortunate for him. But fun fact, Paul George is now the last remaining active member of the class of 2010, the draft class of 2010. So Paul George may not look like it, but he's been in the league for 14 years.
And the other thing I'll say about Gordon Hayward is, for those who remember and were paying attention to the NBA, that from I guess 2010-ish to like 2016-ish, well, maybe a little bit before that, when Gordon Hayward first hit that all-star level of play, there were questions about, like, okay, is Gordon Hayward about to step up and be one, like, a top 4 or 5 small forward in the league? And I think for about 2 years he was like a top 3 or 4 small forward in the league. And that's with, if who was good at that time, that was a big thing to say, especially. And the only real thing was that he was playing in Utah, and so nobody was really watching him play. And I didn't know that, so that's a good fact, that Paul George is now the last remaining active player from that class. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, congrats to Gordon Hayward on a great career. You kind of hurt my feelings with another player who's going to retire without a ring, because I'm a CP3 fan. And he hasn't retired yet, but it's looking like he's on his last leg. Career.
Never know, man. He could stick a while. He could stick around in San Antonio, have like a Tony Parker revitalization. You never know.
Who knows? He's a little older than Tony Parker was when he had that career revitalization, and I hope he does, because I think he's a player he's part of the player association, and he's part of the strongest player association in major sports. So I think he deserves to win a ring. I would have liked to see Gordon Hayward win one, maybe with OKC, but it is what it is.
We'll see. He could always come back. But yes, now for the last segment of our NBA segment. NBA teams under the most pressure when the season starts. So this kind of associated, you guys can see in the link below. I wrote an article this week for lastwordonsports.com, shameless plug, about like the NBA teams on the Eastern Conference most under pressure. But this is in both conferences. Trey and I kind of had a conversation. Sometimes I write articles, and then, as Trey knows, the idea from these articles ends up in this rundown. So because it's just good topics. So NBA teams under the most pressure when the season starts. So for me, it's the Boston Celtics, obviously defending the championship. The New York Knicks, because we'll see if the power of friendship helps them in an 82-plus game season. I'll just say it on air because Trey knows how I feel about this. I think the Knicks are a great team, but I think they're going to kind of end up like the Nets. A lot of talent and a lot of and having friendship isn't going to get them far. But that all depends on Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, DiVincenzo. We'll see what that looks like. But I wouldn't start booking my finals trip anytime soon if I was a Knicks fan. I'll just say it like this. But this is the best chance probably in either one of our lifetimes, Trey and I's, of them actually having a championship contender. So I'll give them that. Obviously, our Sixers. The Sixers are a great team. Obviously, had one of the best off seasons ever. I talk about that in my last word on sport on the last one on Sports Article 2, and about Paul George, the third star that was promised, on WashingtonSportsTakes.com. I do write a lot, as Trey knows. But I just think those are your 3 East Coast teams. I would probably say the Pacers, but I think that they don't have as much pressure on them as the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Knicks. Those are my 3 from the East Coast. From the Eastern Conference, I should say. And then on the Western Conference, Minnesota, just because I think that now they went to the second round, got beat by Dallas, but they're still like a top 2, top 3 team in the West. They have to justify that. Got Bub Carrington, to like give them more scoring punch off the bench. Like I think it's right there. It just depends on Anthony Edwards. And obviously, are they going to keep that dynamic duo together of Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns? This is what I mean. Like Anthony Edwards has to become a more of a playmaker because you got to get Cat going. That really works. Anthony Edwards has the amount of space he does, not just because he's a great player at 22, 23 years old, but also because you got to worry about Karl Anthony Towns, right? So, like, without Karl Anthony Towns, it doesn't really work. So I hope that, Anthony Edwards develops more as a playmaker. But I think the Timberwolves have a lot of pressure on them. Then you have the OKC Thunder, another one of my favorites. They went and got Alex Caruso. It seems like they're constructing a team specifically to beat Dallas. So I think that, they have to justify that. OKC, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, will he take another step? The Williams, they're not brothers, I think, but the Williams guys, will they step up? How does it look with Chet? Like, is that a dynamic duo? It seems like it is. Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Is there a third scorer that's going to make their appearance in OKC? And if they get that third scorer along with Alex Caruso, I think they end up in the finals. Like, I think I've told Trey this off air, but I'm going to say it on air. Like, I think your Western Conference finals these next couple of years, now that Denver is doing this, is going to be OKC and Minnesota duking it out to see who's going to face the Celtics or the Sixers and or the Knicks in the finals. I think that is your finals these next few years. Like, Thunder and Minnesota versus Boston, Philly, or New York. Like, I think that's your finals these next few years. So those of you who are I-95 slot fans, like, get ready for those Sixers, Celtics, Sixers, Knicks battles, because that's probably going to be your finals matchups in the next few years. OKC Sixers, OKC Celtics, OKC New York, Minnesota Sixers, Minnesota Celtics. Like, that's going to be your matchups these next few years. So, and then Dallas, because they were a finals runner-up, and we'll see if it really can work with Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving, and Luka Doncic. I think it can. I don't know if that'll be a finals contender, but we just had this conversation a few weeks ago. But I think those are the 6 teams that are under the most pressure: Sixers, Celtics, Knicks, Mavs, Thunder, Timberwolves. Those are my 6. Trey?
Yeah, I'll actually start with the West because I think that's where we disagree the most. I agree with you on the Timberwolves. There's pressure there. They got some, you might not realize it, but you got guys like Cat and Gobert, who've been in the league for like a decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got a younger guy in Ant who's probably the best player on the team, give or take between him and Cat. But I agree with you, Cat. Or rather, Ant has to take that next step when it comes to playmaking, and also being able to be better at positioning on the floor, like finding where his spot is on the floor. So I agree with you on the Timberwolves. I disagree with you on the Thunder, and we kind of talked about this as well. But I disagree with you on the Thunder as far as most pressure, because while they do have some pressure, I think. And then my other team is Dallas, and then so Dallas Timberwolves. I think though over the Thunder, I think the Suns actually have a slight bit more pressure, because you got two of the top 5 shooting guards, 5 or 6 shooting guards in the league, and then you got KD on the Suns. And so you look at that team and you say, okay, this team should be a championship contender. And they've struggled tremendously during the regular season, and then got knocked out in the first round and were swept by the Timberwolves. So if I am that organization, if I'm in that fan base, I'm looking at the Suns and saying, why can these players, these 3 like top tier players, not figure it out? So I'm looking at that team and saying, okay, if they don't figure it out this year, does that team break up? And that's why I agree with the Timberwolves, because you look at that and you say, okay, if they can't figure something out and make something work, get to the finals or whatever the case may be this year, does Cat resign? What do they do with Rudy Gobert? does that whole trio kind of stay together, or does something else happen? And I have that same question with the Suns. Whereas with the Thunder, I think they are in a good place. I don't think they're in a spot where you say if they don't do anything in the playoff, if they don't, if they get knocked out in the first round or something crazy like that, that's a whole different conversation. But I think they are kind of that young Mark Jackson coached Warriors team, or the early days of Boston when they played the Warriors. I think they're in that stage where there's expectations to go far in the playoffs, to win, to potentially win a championship. But I don't think they're in a spot where you're considering trading key players or breaking up a core group of players if they don't get to the conference finals, or they don't make it past the second round because they're still young. And then you also take away, like we just talked about, Gordon Hayward from that situation. So you don't have as many vets on the team anymore as well. I just think that a veteran team like the Suns has just a slight bit more pressure than the Timberwolves do. And then Dallas. Dallas obviously is in a situation. They're in a weird situation because you look at that team and you say, I mean, they've added some good pieces this year, but you look at that team and you say, okay, would I have expected them, let's say first 2 weeks into the season, that they were going to go to the finals. But as they got towards the end of that season, you were like, the Mavericks are playing really well. They're a real threat. And then they played so well throughout the course of the playoffs, and that's why they ended up in the finals. And it ended up not working out. They weren't able to win the series. But when you have those two guys on your team, you have a guy like Kyrie, who's now been to 2 finals and has won 1. 3 finals, right? Because he was there 14-15 with the Cavs. He was there 15-16, the 3-1 comeback, and then left that year after, and then with the Mavericks. So I think you look at that team, and I think they're a team that potentially has a lot of turnover if they're not able to have the same level of success that they did this past season.
I mean, we agree to disagree on this, but I think you've got some good things. Obviously, Phoenix definitely has pressure because they'll definitely end up blowing it up. So I definitely agree. We can agree to disagree on this stuff. We're relatively in agreement as far as the East, just not with the West, but that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's what we like. So, yeah, DJ Moore got a contract extension, a 4-year deal. Caleb Williams gets his target of the future, at least for the next 4 years. And my reaction to this is good. Like I said, Caleb Williams finally has a weapon that's going to be around, at least for the duration of his contract. And you get to see how that dynamic works out. The one thing we know Caleb Williams can do is throw well in that intermediate. He's not really a deep ball thrower, but he does well in that intermediate to medium range downfield, and he can really, as Trey has seen at USC, short pass you to death. So, and DJ Moore is a great speed slant receiver and a deep threat. So I think Caleb Williams will develop a deep threat. But I think DJ Moore, that's a great contract for him, and he's got his market value. Good for him. I really have nothing else to add. Trey?
Yeah, I think this is a great signing for a team who has struggled tremendously since Cam left and since Christian McCaffrey left. I will disagree with you, though, on the deep ball for Caleb. Caleb has a phenomenal arm, and so I don't think the Panthers are going to be that good of a team. We'll see how Caleb Williams fares. We've seen all the kind of shenanigans that we saw pre-draft and during the draft. But I think that as a GM, as a head coach, and as a rookie quarterback, one important thing to always have is shore up your quarterback's key targets. And make sure that your quarterback has confidence in who those key targets are. And for the Panthers right now, that's DJ Moore. So hopefully, as we get closer to the season, we got about 2 months or so, a little bit less than 2 months till we get to the preseason. So we'll get to see them in action. I think that that's going to be a really, really great connection because we know DJ Moore is, an excellent receiver. But the other thing is with DJ Moore, he's a good deep threat as well. And like I said, I don't know. I didn't really watch Caleb Williams that much in college. So as far as like what, as far as like scheming and stuff, I don't know what generally he was throwing on a regular basis, but we have seen that Caleb Williams has a phenomenal arm, and he can get the ball deep. So I think we're going to see a number of, longer touchdowns with that connection of Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. Now, like I said, though, the Panthers are not going to be a good team this year. Just bringing back a guy like DJ Moore doesn't equate to that. Just because you drafted a top tier quarterback does not mean that
the Bears.
The Bears. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the Panthers because that's where he started. So yeah, great signing. Good job to the Bears shoring up DJ Moore for their young rookie quarterback. And I'm looking forward to see that connection, especially for those fantasy people. Yards and touchdowns are key. So the longer the touchdown, the better for you.
Yeah, you're talking to not defending anymore, but the champ of fantasy football league. Two of them, I think, and I think Trey won one too. So we're
no,
right.
Because I was in that, I guess it was Kendon's. I can't remember whose league it was, but I've been retired from fantasy sports for a long time, but I was dominating that year, and then Devaney came from like out of the losers bracket or something like that and beat me because I think I forgot to change my lineup or somebody just didn't have a really good week. So I have a lot of PTSD from playing fantasy football. So speaking of retirements, I am retired from fantasy sports, and maybe one day I'll come out of retirement. But as of right now, Clarence Taylor III is retired from fantasy sports because of the PTSD I have suffered at the hands of some individuals in that league. So
yeah, that was a church league that I won, but I wasn't talking about that league. I was talking about the more recent broadcasters league that I'm in with David, who I know you know very well, Trey. So maybe one day we'll have David, the Three Musketeers, get back together. Well, four if you count Morgan, but get David on here eventually. But yeah, so moving right along in this football segment before we get out of here, Jalen Hurts was ranked as the 15th best player in the NFL. Trey, your reaction to this?
The Eagles bias in me might say maybe he's a little bit higher. I think it makes sense though if you look at how he played last season. He struggled throughout parts of the year, and I think 15 is a solid place for him. When you think about some of the better players in the league, and if you're, I haven't looked at the list yet, and to see who's ahead of him, but Jalen Hurts is, whether he's the top 15 or top 20 or top 10 best player in the league, he is top 5, I would say, probably quarterback in the league, and we'll get to that next. So I mean, I'm excited. As far as like media rankings and stuff like that of top players in the league, in some cases there's a little bit of politics around those. In some cases it's a popularity contest. So for me, what really matters as an Eagles fan and just a fan of football, what is he doing on the field? And with the team that the Eagles have this year and the weapons that he has, I see no reason why you shouldn't look at Jalen Hurts as one of the best players in the league and obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he should be higher, but after the collapse last year and his having a relatively good number, hopefully finally having Kellen Moore. I liked Brian Johnson, but I think the offense kind of got a little stale in that battle between Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni. So I think he'll have a really good year. I think he will have an MVP level year this year. I think he's looking sharp as long as Jalen Hurts doesn't try, because he has a tendency to try to get it all back in one play. As long as he doesn't do that, he'll be fine. I think that he's going to have a breakout year this year, and I think that 15 is probably a little too low for my liking. But recognizing that Josh Allen was like 17, I guess 15 is just right. I probably would have preferred him being 11 or 12, but we'll take it. It's a good ranking for him. This is ranked by his peers, so 15, just right. I'm gonna go 3 Little Bears, just right for him. I'm of the mindset that Jalen Hurts, like I said, is going to have a breakout year. Is going to be an MVP this year, and is going to solidify himself. In my mind, he's already a top 3, top 4 quarterback, but I think he's going to solidify it this year.
And to add one more thing on that, the other thing, context wise, is this is 15th out of 100 players. This is not 15th out of quarterbacks. This is out of the 100 best players in the league. And for context, he was number 3 last season. And so the reason why I kind of said politics and popularity is typically you'll see after when a player is ranked at one particular place on the list, if they don't do better or just as good that season, and there's other players who stepped up and did they remarkably improved over their prior season, generally they will hop over those players who maybe had a down year or their team had a down year, which is the case for the Eagles, because Jalen Hurts didn't quite have a down year statistically. It was more that the team struggled in that back half of the season. So yeah, what I'd like to see him maybe a little bit higher. It makes sense to me based on the I don't know what's the word I want to use. I'll just say the one of the craziest collapses I've seen in Philly sports history. So
the worst collapse of Philly sports history.
Yeah.
The worst collapse of Philly sports history. All right, so moving right along. Our last, y'all know we like to do fun segments. Top 5 or 10 QB rankings. I'll start. I'll do my top 5. I'll go with God. You can't box with God, man. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Like I said, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Y'all know how some of y'all know who listen to this show how I really feel about Josh Allen, but I can't be too disrespectful. Number 4 in my ranking, and then 5. I think I gotta give it to 5th, 5 can be anybody, but I guess I gotta give it to, even though he hasn't really done anything for me, but I gotta give it to Justin Herbert. I got to give it to Justin Herbert over. I want to put Sunshine Trevor Lawrence in here, but I think Trevor Lawrence is my 6 QB. I might as well do top 10. Trevor Lawrence is my 6. Let's see, who am I missing? A-Raj. I got to give it to Aaron Rodgers. Is 6 for me, even though he's aging. Russell Wilson. It was my 7. I've got 3 more. Lord Jesus. Did I say Trevor Lawrence yet? Trevor Lawrence. I said Trevor Lawrence. I said Trevor Lawrence already, or this?
Yeah, you said Trevor Lawrence already.
Oh man, so yeah, that's my top 7. I don't have a top 7.
Yeah.
That's my top 7.
This is always a tough one for me ranking players like this, but I'll probably say Pat. And I think it's probably Lamar or Josh Allen, 2 or 3. So that's 3. You can interchange them, those 2 at 2 and 3. At 4, I think this hurts to say, but I think Dak is somewhere in the top 5. And then I'm actually going to throw a name in there, who I think will be a top 5 quarterback this year, in CJ Stroud. If you watched him play, he is, he's a winner's winner. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get too far in the playoffs, but I think the sky is the limit for CJ Stroud, and I think we're going to be talking about him as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. But so Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, I'm sorry, Jalen Hurts, and probably Dak, and then CJ Stroud. And there are other guys like a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Herbert that you could throw in there. Some would probably even throw like a Brock Purdy or a Jared Goff or a Tua Tagovailoa in there. But I think those guys, and I'm more so speaking about regular season, are I think just a slight league above the rest. These have been guys like, oh wait, you know what? Now I left out. Yeah, so actually let me redo my let me Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar, Jalen, and I think CJ Stroud will take that step and be the fifth best. And then you could throw in like guys like Dak or Tua. I think another guy who's going to surprise and be a top 10-ish quarterback in the league this year, based on what we saw in the playoffs and just the great stretch he had at the back half of the regular season, is Jordan Love. I'm excited for what he's going to do with that team. I don't think what we saw in the playoffs was lightning in a bottle. I don't think that's going to just stay where it was in the playoffs. I think we will see that team grow and get better, and I think Jordan Love is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Packers. So yeah.
Okay, I agree. So we go to shout outs. I don't know if shout outs going to be Olympic field, but I know I got one. Michelle Kang, I want to shout out her. She gave out, I alluded to this when we talked about the rugby team, $4 million to donate it to the rugby team so they can have sponsorships and everything else. So good for her for women's rugby. We definitely need more of that. They finally won a medal, so more sponsorship in women's sports. I want to shout out her. Shout out to the volleyball team, the women's volleyball team, the indoor volleyball team. Overcoming a big behind deficit to beat Serbia yesterday. They really thought, it was during 5 sets. This is the time when you get into sports that I like, but I don't watch a lot. So it was good to see the volleyball team really do well. I think that they should get a medal, hopefully a gold medal. Like last Olympics, it was the first time the men and the women's indoor volleyball team both won a gold medal. I don't know if that'll happen again. The women have kind of looked a little shaky, but I think that win yesterday was kind of like, it's kind of like one of those have-to-have wins that can change your season/Olympics. I think that's that type of win for them. So shout out to the women's volleyball team. Shout out to Michelle Kang. I'm trying to think, who else do I want to shout out? I believe that's Flavor Flav. You know what? He's done a really good job with the women's water polo team. It's good to see him lean into it and help them out. He was out here taking pictures with Jill Biden and meeting all of Joe Biden's and Jill Biden's grandchildren. So great to see Flavor Flav like really leaning, because most people don't know he's a very educated man and very, 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 very musically talented. Like, I think he's a trained pianist, so he's smarter than most people think he is. So it's good to see that he's leaning into it. And then I believe he helped a track runner pay their rent today. They owe like $7,760 on rent, and he helped them out and sponsored. I think she was a discus thrower. And so shout out to Flavor Flav, just being that guy, man. What more can you say, man? Walking it like he talking, man. Good job for him. Good job. Trey?
Yeah, and to add more to the Flavor Flav situation, I believe, and I'm blanking on his name, but Serena's husband also stepped in to help with that situation as well.
Oh, yeah, Alexis.
Yeah.
O'Hannon.
But I think I got 2 shout outs. My first shout out is actually not one of the athletes. It's actually Celine Dion. For those who don't know, she was struggling with something called it's called like stiff person disease or something like that. And essentially what happens is it causes like your muscles to really like tense up, and you get like a lot of muscle spasms. And in particular, it can happen in your vocal cords. So she was actually, like last year, she had to cancel her whole tour, and she was not able to sing for a very, very long time. And if you watch the opening ceremony, she gave she sang, and she sang well. I mean, Celine Dion is one of the GOATs when it comes to vocalists and music artists. So shout out to her for coming out strong and singing so well, despite the things that she was dealing with. And the other one is, and Colin, you might know his name, but there was a particular player. I don't know what sport it was. I just know that there was one particular player, or one particular on Team USA, who he's literally sitting on the bench the entire time. There was one like aspect of the competition that he was there specifically for that, and he came out.
You're talking about the guy with the cross-eyed Narjuzik, I think his name was.
Yes, Steven. Steven is his name. So shout out to Steven. He kind of became like a fan favorite on social media because he was just kind of like being a good cheerleader on the sideline, and he was literally only going to compete in the pommel horse. That's what it was. And he did phenomenal at the one thing that they needed him to do well at. So shout out to him. I think that's kind of an awesome story, and it's just kind of cool to see. It's something that maybe would have went unnoticed, but shout out to like social media and just the coverage of it, that people saw that story, which is the awesome thing about the Olympics, and like grabbing stories of just overall Olympic stories, or just individual athlete stories that kind of shine. So
yeah. All right, so he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. I'm gonna let Trey go first because I got a lot to say, as he knows. So I'm gonna let him go first.
I had my he's not him, and Kylan, you might be able to help me remember. I said who it was going to be last night when we were kind of planning for today, and I can't remember who I was going to say, but Lord have mercy.
Man, was it Pat McAfee?
No, it wasn't Pat McAfee. It had something to do with. I got to jog my memory and think about the Lord have mercy. He's not him was. Wow, I guess I'm getting old.
Me
but
too.
So I'm actually going to kick it back to you because I need to remember who it was.
All right, so my day aren't them. I just got two day aren't thems. So my day aren't them. First off is NABJ. For those that don't know, National Association of Black Journalists. Just because I just think that could have been handled way differently. Now, as Trey knows, I talked to him yesterday. I probably would have gone, but some financial stuff came up, and because I couldn't go, and after watching what I saw yesterday, or watching clips, I should say, because I didn't watch it live. Trey and I talked about this. It was a travesty of what happened. Had this man out here challenging a biracial person's blackness and everything else. A huge disappointment as an NABJ member. Huge disappointment in them that they didn't plan that better, that they basically gave him a open platform. The last line of defense was live fact checking, and they didn't fact check him. It was a whole thing. And it was a very much of a travesty, and I think the NABJ has lost some respect there, and I think they're gonna have to do a lot of work. And then obviously shouts out to April Ryan for doing reporting about how they kind of like screwed over VP Harris about being there, because obviously for those of you that don't know, again, I don't really try to lean into politics here, but what NABJ did was such a travesty that it needed to be talked about here on this show. Like, they wanted her in person. They already knew that she couldn't be in person because everybody knows that, Texas Representative Sheila Lee just died of pancreatic cancer last week. And she was very famously going to be in Houston to do the boule of Sigma Rho. And then also, while she was in Houston, go to Sheila Lee's funeral. So she obviously could not have been at NABJ today or yesterday. And she was, shout out to Trey's home city, she was in Atlanta a day or two ago too. So it wasn't feasible. And obviously because she is the sitting vice president, like, it's kind of hard, logistically, security wise, for them to be like, we want you in person and not do like a remote, or she was willing to do like a live in-person interview later. and they didn't kind of accommodate her, but they accommodated Trump. It was kind of different. And I know the whole city of Chicago was mad because he's definitely been insulting Chicago. It was a whole thing. So NABJ is my day on them. Not because I don't think, as a journalist, I think it is good to interview everybody. He's a, you know, he's a likely president. He's likely to, he's a likely presidential candidate. He's one of two options, so you got to interview him. But I think it could have been done better and been better planned instead of just thrown together. And the circus was in town and everybody involved was a clown. You can't be surprised when the circus comes to town and you wind up being a clown because you didn't plan to be used. It's kind of like what he did to the HBCU presidents a couple of years ago, right? Just used them as a prompt based on their needs. So you gotta be better in ABJ. And then my other day aren't them. And I'll just make this in general. There's a lot of people these last few days since the Olympics started. We kind of talked about it with opening ceremonies and everything. But the whole thing with Imani Khalifa, for those that don't know, she is the boxer of Algeria. Who a lot of people, you might see your conservative friends and a lot of your older adults in your lives probably call her transgender. She has an extra XY chromosome, which gives her way more testosterone than a lot of other women. So people are misgendering her, and she's a natural woman. For those that don't know about Algeria, it's a very conservative Muslim country, so much so that hormone therapy is banned. And so is LGBTQI, so is being gay in that country. So literally starting rumors about her. Now, for her sake, Algeria has come out because obviously they know her medical records, because you wouldn't represent a country like that if you weren't a natural woman. So they know her medical records. They said it was a travesty and that these are unfounded claims. So we're happy for her. But these for a country like that, it could literally put her in jail. It could cost her life. So I want y'all to do better research. I said this before. I just said this on Twitter. Life would be better. Social media is better when you do some research. Again, if you're seeing somebody like Tomi Lahren, Riley Gaines, Outkick, Fox News, if you're seeing them tweet about something or put something out there, it might not be true. Do some research. Find some other sources. Find out if this is real or not. There's a lot going on here. It's a complicated situation, but don't look stupid. I know that this whole men and women sports thing, which, just to be clear here, because there is some inside information here that I know, there are no transgendered people, just in general competing at the Olympics. You do have a couple non-binary track runners on Team USA, but that's as close as you get to the LGBTQI plus thing. So there are no transgendered people competing at any Olympics. There is a noted rapist who lost in beach volleyball. There is that, and he's playing for, I believe, France. But there is that, but there is no transgendered people at all. So my day on them is to NABJ, and it's to the people out here spreading these false rumors, trying to cost this person, using their agenda, but not really thinking about that this person represents a very, very repressive country. And thankfully, it's not going to cost her life. But I mean, Algeria is not a country that if you were transgendered, you would want to represent in the Olympics. So, I'm just of the mindset that people, I say all this to say, do your research. Social media is a better place when we do our research, when we come from a place of actual understanding instead of ignorance. Stop. There's a lot of women that are running around this world. They're not all athletes. They're natural women. They just have a lot more testosterone than a lot of other women. You might see this with women with beards. You see this a lot in big cities and in other places. There are people that have a lot of testosterone in their natural born women, and they just have a lot of testosterone. They're not transgendered. A lot of y'all showing y'all ignorance with this. Please do some research. Trey.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, I cannot remember for the life of me who my he's not him was. So I'm gonna flip it and go with I got two he's hims. And the first one is actually I don't know if you knew this, Kylan, but Chase Budinger, who's a former NBA player, was a great shooter in the NBA.
Yep.
Is actually on Team USA's Olympic beach volleyball team.
Yep.
And speaking of, you mentioned France's beach volleyball team. Team USA just beat France. So shout out to him. He had kind of a cool moment where I don't know if they were walking throughout the street or whatever. He ran into LeBron and some of the NBA guys and some of the WNBA women, and so that was kind of a cool moment for him. So shout out to him, and I don't know. I think that's just a cool thing for him, having been a solid NBA player and like a key piece on some teams as far as being a shooter. And then the other one, as far as he's him, is actually Michael Phelps. So last week, one of my he's not him was Gilbert Arenas and his comments about South Sudan. And one of the biggest criticisms that some of these NBA athletes and just in general, like former pro athletes, the biggest criticism I've seen of them and I've made of them as well is some of these guys are like it's clear that they're very salty about some of the young talent in the major sports. And then it's hard for them to give them credit where credit is due often. And you've seen that across the board, even, with different sports. But my he's him actually is for Michael Phelps, because if you didn't see it, there was a clip of Michael Phelps cheering on, I'm blanking on who the swimmer was, but I believe he was on Team France. And like, yes. And Michael Phelps was just like, you would have thought that he was cheering for somebody on Team USA, the way that he was cheering this swimmer on. And I thought that was just a small moment and a good example of what some of these other, pro athletes who are now retired should be doing. Is they're sitting on the sideline now. They had their time. They should give these younger athletes their flowers. There's no reason not to, unless they're doing something wrong, they should be able to look at these current younger athletes and say, wow, look at what they're doing, and cheer them on with as much, fervor and like excitement that Michael Phelps did. So there you go.
Yeah, and I just want to correct the record here because I said he was a French guy. He's not a French guy. He is a Dutch guy. So
Dutch, okay.
Dutch. So his name is Stefan van der Velde. So I want to correct the record there. 2016. Convicted child.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're talking about the volleyball. I thought you were talking about it. Was it Marcan that, I think it was Marcan that Phelps was cheering? Is it something like that?
Yeah, Leon Marchand. I said it.
Marchand, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So, and I just we wanna be clear. It'll come to both of us after we get off this air. But yeah, man. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank Morgan. Thank Trey. First, before I let Trey, tell y'all again where y'all can find them. Shouts out to me. Those that don't know, my birthday was Friday. Another year older. So thank you all for the love, the wishes that you sent out. So yeah, and this show has been great. I thank Trey for coming up. Obviously, you saw Morgan today. With it being the Olympics, we may or may not see her. The plan is always to have her on, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So, like I said, she has Olympics brain, so she's been covering the Olympics. So again, what you saw earlier, I was not trying to ignore her. We had already talked, and Trey knows this. You guys don't get to see what happens before we get on, but she had already said she got Olympics brain and probably wouldn't be much use in these other topics. That's what that was. So yeah, Trey, where can the people find you?
So Instagram, Mr. Taylor, and then 3 eyes. Twitter is my first and last name backwards, so Clarence Taylor. Just literally flip my first name, flip my last name, type that in, you'll find me on X. And then also on my YouTube channel, Mr. Taylor Movies. You'll find a couple short films that I've done. One called Dirty Diana 1996, kind of a horror thriller film. And then another short film called Even When I'm Not a Drama that deals with kind of grief and moving on from those we've lost. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Cool, man. Cool. And again, thank you all for, as he's saying this, I don't know if I even like this, so I'm going to subscribe right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. So I just subscribed, so you can do it too. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next week. See y'all later. Enjoy the rest of this Thursday night here. So whenever you're watching this, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest as we come down to the tail end of the Olympics next week. Enjoy all that. Hope you're enjoying college football 25. For those of you sickos like me that got it at Madden, 2K dropped this today. Like we're eating good if you're a sports gamer. So
and for the NFL fans too. You got the NFL coming up. So
it's a Hall of Fame game today. We didn't really cover it because it's preseason, but look forward to doing that and covering training camp once again. See y'all later. Deuces.
Peace.